Often people read what we write on our website at marriagehelper.com and they hear all these great stories about people whose marriages have changed. But sometimes I think you just want to see these people. I mean, are they real? What do they look like? Can we hear their own voices? Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Beam with Relationship Radio. We are part of Marriage Helper, and we have these special guests with us today. We have Karson and Ashley. Welcome to Relationship Radio.
Hello.
Glad you guys are with us.
This is Relationship Radio, an extension of Marriage Helper International. Hosted by renowned marriage and relationship expert Dr. Joe Beam and the CEO of Marriage Helper, Kimberly Holmes. We answer your questions directly with research-based principles that you can implement immediately. Regardless of the situation, what we teach will not only make your relationships better, but will also help you to become the best version of yourself along the way. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time we release new content. If you have a relationship question, follow the link in the description to see which topic is up for discussion this week. We can't wait to answer your questions and have you join our community. Turn up the volume and prepare to take notes as we begin this week's episode of Relationship Radio.
So just to get into it, may I ask, how did you guys first meet each other?
We met without knowing, I guess, technically. Before we got in a relationship or anything, was on just on Facebook through a church that I was pastoring, and she joined the Facebook page, and I had just kind of said, "Hi, welcome to to the church's Facebook page," Mm-hmm. And then after I was going through my divorce, I found her on Christian Mingle.
So. Okay, and so what year would that have been, or how many years ago?
That was in 2012.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the year 2012, you guys actually, after your divorce, you guys met each other. And then how did you develop your relationship? I mean, were you in the same city or was it long?
We were in the same city. We were about 5 minutes apart drive-wise. So it worked out really well.
Okay. So how long did you date before you got married?
Oh, officially, I think it was really short.
It was 1 year.
Yeah. Before we got married, we were engaged 6 months and married 6 months later.
Yeah.
Okay. So from the time you first interacted, it was 6 months or a year before? I got confused there.
It was a year from our first meetup.
Okay. All right. So a year from that. All right. So you got married, and how was marriage to begin with?
Rough.
So it was rough from the outset. Why was it rough from the outset? Why?
Well, I don't think I had words to put to it. I think before Marriage Helper, but there was a lot of I think expectations, unspoken expectations. We didn't know how each other worked exactly. I was trying to do things. I wanted a certain response. Whether it was cleaning the house or having dinner ready. It was like I wasn't getting the response from her that I wanted. Even though I didn't tell her, hey, this is what I'm doing it or why I'm doing it. But, some of those things.
Yeah. This is bad communication.
So were you guys talking at all?
Oh, yeah, we were talking. And I mean, I think from the outside, most people wouldn't have said that they thought it was bad or anything like that. It just, we both had failed marriages and relationships before. So it was like, you just expected it to be, better. It was like, wait, this is a lot like the last one,
Okay. So how long before you guys began to realize that you were having trouble more than normal?
I don't know that I ever realized it for a while, for years. I just thought that's what everyone dealt with. So maybe the love story is not meant for me. Maybe this is just life. I need to be realistic and just be glad I have a good husband. So that was my mindset.
Okay. And how were you thinking, Karson?
It was pretty quick. Probably 2 years in, I'd say. We had gotten into some fights and, some things got a little more intense than I was, that really put me in a spot where I shut down at that point. I just didn't want to get that intense about anything ever again. And so I think for me, that was a moment that I shut down. But there was definitely times waking up where it was just how, why, it's just a matter of time till this is over.
So am I hearing correctly here, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting, that because of the experiences each of you had in previous relationships, that you basically carried those into this relationship so that you weren't really understanding each other,
Yep.
and almost either impossible expectations or no expectations whatsoever, one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how long before you decided you needed to find some help?
Well, it would have been, how many years was that? In 2006, 17?
Almost 4.
Is it 2017?
Yes, sir.
So we were 4 years in.
Mhm.
So we were 4 years in when I had been going to counseling, and I had been, talking about, our marriage and feelings I had for somebody else, and that I never acted on or anything, but I had, and I just kept telling my counselor how miserable I was, and she just kind of looked at me and said, "Well, you're pretty much trapped, aren't you?" And I was like, "Okay, that's not super helpful, But I was a pastor, and I felt like I was in a bad marriage. I felt like, who do I go to? I'm the one people come to, so there was a lot of that. And then eventually I had some burnout from church, and it led to a night out without Ashley that I told my feelings to that person that I had feelings for. And that's where your story, kind of, I felt like was very similar to some of the things with pastoring. And but I started a 6-week or 12-week affair, 6 of it secretly, and then 6 more kind of open.
Open meaning that your wife knew about it, or did other people know about it as well?
Yeah.
Like
The whole world, yeah.
now, was that because you told, or was that because
we got caught, and so at that point, it was like, finally, we got caught. It was like a relief at that point, and then it was all right. So now here's the plan. Now we move into the plan of whatever plan we had, and so that was how that happened.
And so, how long had this relationship been developing with this other person?
Years.
About 10 years.
Oh, so it's a long-term acquaintance, and then it finally developed into something more intense than that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So 6 weeks in, you get caught. Now, do you guys split up at that point, or what happened when you got caught?
No, Ashley wouldn't give up on me. She, as much as I wanted her to. It was just weird. I don't know how to put it into terms, but I was still living at home, saying I wasn't talking to the other person, and but everyone kind of knowing that it was happening, and just that kind of game, I guess. And so that was how that worked.
Okay, so in that second 6 weeks, you were still living at home and still communicating with the other person. Were you still seeing her?
Yeah.
Okay. And Ashley, did you know he was doing that?
Uh-huh.
So what did you do?
Let's use the right words. I controlled what I could. So I couldn't
Okay.
control him. I couldn't stop him, right? Or he would have just stopped when I asked him to the first day. So I just controlled what I could. And that was where, the Save My Marriage course and pies just really helped me. So I could only control me.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So at what point did you find a marriage helper?
About a week after I found out about the affair.
Okay, so this is like 7 weeks into the affair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how did you find us, if I may ask?
I Googled exactly how to save my marriage when the spouse went out.
Oh, okay. And so I'm assuming that led you to one of our articles or podcast or something.
Yeah, it led me to an article, which led me to the website, which led me to the Facebook group.
Okay, so you joined the big Facebook group that we have. Yeah. Now, just for those who are listening or watching, then that particular Facebook group, we limit to about 5,500 members. If we allowed everybody who wanted in, it would be 55,000 people easily, but we limited to 5,500. So I'm glad that you were one that got in.
Me too.
And the reason we limit it is not because we don't care. We do. It's just that's as many as our admins can deal with. And it's like, okay, we can't help people if we get beyond this. So you found a big group and you got into the big group. Did that help at all?
Oh, it helped a lot. It helped a lot. I felt, there was a community and support, but some of the members just kept referencing, oh, you can learn more about this in the course, or this is covered in detail. And then I found out that there were special coaching calls included in the course. And I was like, that's really cool. And so it didn't take me long to sign up for that.
Okay, so you signed up for the SMM, as we call it in-house. It's the Save My Marriage online course. Now, that was still the old course back then. We have a newer course now, but that was the old course. And the coaching call she's referring to is that people in that particular program, once a week, we put one of our coaches online, and people can type in all kinds of questions, and the coach, either he or she, our coach, will answer as many as they can in that hour. So what were you hoping or expecting that Save My Marriage would do for you, Ashley?
I hoped it would help me figure out the best way to save my marriage. Because logically it made sense, the teaching, it's like, okay, because the world would say, oh, no, you be mean to this person, or you make them jealous. And like, that just didn't make sense to me. And so they're like, no, like the easiest thing to do is just to stop doing what you were doing wrong. And so I just knew to start there. And I just kept saying, as long as I do these things, it should work, right? If anything this will. And so I'm just going to do what they say, because I've heard stories of people before me who've done the same things. So
okay.
I'm really confident in other people's stories.
Okay. Other people's stories about the course. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you worked through all of the sessions.
Yes.
Did you dig into it deeply and do all the homework and all that kind of stuff?
I did it all.
I bet you did. Yeah.
I did everything. So I had, gratitude journals and pie journals, and I printed out everything. I left my printouts at work.
Oh.
I did it in secret.
Okay. So Karson didn't know that you were doing this.
No, he had no idea.
And for those of us who may not know, when we talk about things like PIES, it's an acronym. It stands for physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. So PIES, which kind of encompasses the whole of a human being. So you're doing these in secret.
Yeah.
You don't want Karson to know. Why didn't you want Karson to know? I'm curious.
I didn't want him to feel like it was some ploy.
Like a project or
or just something, or
a trick.
A trick or something that would just easily go away. Like, the attitude, and I know he had it some, but like, oh, now you care. Oh, now you'll change. So, I didn't want him to know what I was doing.
Okay. So how did going to that the course material help?
You said, how did it help? Oh, goodness. The most immediate helpful thing for me and Karson and I was, there is a horseman session in the course, and it just talks about, in simple words, how to treat each other and treat other people. And I took the assessment, and I think I cried for 3 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. And no wonder he wants to leave. That's how I felt.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry we made you cry. I apologize for that. But sometimes self-insight can be a little painful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, wow, this is what we're doing and this kind of thing. So Karson, as she was going through this program, you didn't know it at all, but were you seeing any changes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw changes immediately. I think even kind of before. Some of it was like, I wasn't sure if it was shock or, or some of that, but I was angry when everything came out, and the house was such a peaceful, loving, place where everyone got along. It was just like, it just changed so dramatically. Instantly, I just thought it was like, this is such a trick, and I expected it to stop, anytime. It was just like, well, okay, a week, okay, a month, and it's like, and then you're and that's part of what happened with the next 6 weeks. Was 6 weeks into it, and it's okay, this is still happening. and then other things transpired that kind of made us pull a trigger, but I don't know what you want to get into and when. So,
Okay. So you ended the affair.
that's a complicated way to put it. I did initially, and then long time later, I had some setbacks a few months after that. But I was the one that initially brought up actually one of your podcasts. Ashley, I was driving 2 hours to work. I stopped. Obviously, I wasn't pastoring anymore, and
Right.
I'd found a job. It paid really well, but it was 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and driving 2 hours back and forth. So she gave me your podcast, and it was I was on Limerence.
It was 3 prayers about love that God won't answer.
Yeah,
that's the title of it.
3 prayers about love that God won't answer. That was a long time ago when we made that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you listened to the writing.
Yeah, I was listening to it, and it took what I thought was a personal experience that no one else could ever have or imagine, and formalized it. It was, and so I actually sent it to the other girl, and I said, I don't want you, to listen to this, but I don't want to hide it from you, this information, and so after that, the conversation kind of went to, this probably just needs to end, and so it was a mutual, type ending there at that point. So.
Okay. I think that's very profound. I'm sending this to you because I don't want to hide it from you, but I don't want you to listen to it. That says a lot, doesn't it? That explains a lot about human nature and our emotions, etc. So at what point did things begin to change for you guys?
I was working a lot on myself. And one of the things I realized was never fixing my first marriage, never getting over that and jumping into ours, so quickly. And so it was like, not only did I have to get over our past, Ashley and I's past relationship, I was still trying to get over another, failed relationship. And and then I lost the church. It was everything that, I planted it, with my ex-father-in-law. And so it was my everything too. So it was a massive loss, and loss of friends, and obviously the other person, and her family and all of them, they were all our closest friends. So it was a massive, massive loss. And I went into a really bad depression for 18 months. I mean, how long until I took medication, would you say?
16 months. Yeah.
And it was a fight for us. Like, we were getting along, like, I don't know how to put it. Like, it was better.
Oh, it was definitely better.
A better relationship, but we
weren't connected emotionally very well.
There was no emotional connection. Physically, things were great.
I don't like that.
Okay.
We had a good time.
We were having a really good time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. What did you say, Ashley?
Oh, I said we had a good time.
You had a good time. Okay. All right. So physically, things are much better. Emotionally, you're not connected, but at least things have calmed down at that point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd gone through a couple setbacks, and after we got through some of that, I was working a lot on myself, some counseling. We were coaching. We were working with Jim as a coach, through that whole time. And I'm sure I irritated him to death. But he was, having a coach like that was it was so much better than any of the counseling I'd ever had, and he never told me I was trapped,
Yeah, I'm so sorry the counselor said that to you. Just for those out there who are listening or watching, understand that we offer coaching at Marriage Helper, which is not counseling. It's not therapy. It's not done by people with master's and PhD degrees. It's done by people who understand a lot about life. And so rather than counseling or therapy, which they're not trained to do, they do coaching, and Jim is one of our coaches. We have quite a few. And so the coaching, why did you decide to take the coaching? First of all, let me back up. Did you ever go through any of the material in the Save My Marriage course, Karson, or was that just Ashley?
No, he just went through the workshop material.
Yeah, that was at the work.
Yeah.
I never saw any of it before I showed up to the workshop.
Okay. So actually, in consideration of the value, how valuable to you was the Save My Marriage course?
It was overly valuable to me. I can't even speak enough on it because it just gave me something to focus on, so you can't control everything, but I can dedicate, 30 minutes of my day to this program and then make sure I'm implementing it, and just the focus, no matter what, it just helped me focus on myself and what I could do and understanding, relationships and things like that.
Gotcha. I understand. And can you specifically mention anything other? You already mentioned the horseman. We talked about that. Can you remember any other big things for you and that course?
The reading about the love path really helped because it just completely made sense how to, a relationship can just fall apart by falling off of it. And so reading that and understanding that was like, oh, well, now I know how to move forward. Okay, let's create, work on pies, but let's also create a friendship. And so that was super helpful. So that's what I worked on. No matter where I was in the course, is like, let me work on my friendship with my husband. No matter what day it is, he's still my friend, and I'm going to treat him like my friend, and let's see what can happen.
That's actually very deep and profound. So, Karson, even though you didn't know she was going through that course at the time, do you think it was worth her a couple of $100 investment? But it's a lot more an investment of time. Do you now, looking back on it, think that was a good investment for Ashley of her time and effort?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, without a doubt. It was, finding you guys was obviously, I think, what saved our marriage. And I think what it did for her too is it gave her hope, but it also, because I felt like I was just so distant for so long, but it gave her a connection too in a community, and all of that, to go, okay, well, I'm not in this alone. There's other people that are experiencing the same thing. Some of them worse, some of them better. Some of them have made it, some of them hadn't, but that community and experience, I think, was crucial for her. And then, like I said, to hear yours and Jim's story and mine, yeah, I just felt, yeah, it was just, it was crazy.
Okay. And so actually, I'm assuming then you became part of that special Facebook community just for people who are in the SMM course.
Yes.
Okay. And so we have that big one, the one that we limit to 5,500 people that you can get in line and hopefully get into. And again, if we had a lot more moderators, we could make it bigger, but we don't want to try to serve people more than we can serve. And then you got into that special group, though. When you're in that course, there's a special group and people are in there along with our admins. And so you both feel, if I heard you correctly, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you both feel that the few $100s that thing costs, because it's not very financially expensive, it's more time expensive, like, when you work through it, you both feel that was a good investment.
Oh, without a doubt. We've told everybody that's come to us about marriage or anything like that, is like, you gotta go to Marriage Helper. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, that's just, you've got to get a part of those groups and get that material.
Yeah.
And we explain it sometimes without trying to explain it without, the paperwork or any of that, and go, this is, and we'll get home from like maybe a date, or if we're out with other couples, and go, did you hear that horseman? Or did you catch those things? And so.
Okay. And so you would recommend this course then to other people?
Yeah. And I had a really close friend of mine actually sign up for the group and was able to reconcile her marriage as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so what would you say to anybody out there right now who is watching this or listening to this? We do it both ways, both video and audio, that might be having marriage difficulties. What would you say to them about the online, the SMM, Save My Marriage course?
I would definitely say that it's worth it because there is hope. There are steps for improvement, and to give it a shot.
And Karson, you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Again, I didn't get to see that side of the Marriage Helper, but just knowing who and the empowerment that she had, and her ability to stand up when everyone else was telling her to get lost, or telling her to leave me, or to and all those, don't let me this, or all those things. that flew in the face of what I think that group was telling her. And she lost friends over it, and, you know, lost a lot of people because she just kept loving me.
It's amazing how that will happen. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you guys, and of course, I know, Karson, you didn't go through it, but you saw the effect of it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the online Save My Marriage course?
You're like a 17.
Yeah. It would have to be a 10 because I've done it, you know, a few times, and I still use the material after reconciling, you know, because it's not for most people smooth sailing right away. But you know, years later, going back at the material, I can't say, oh, well, I wish this was different. Oh, this should have been different, you know. So that's why I would give it a 10.
Okay. And so at some point then you decided you wanted to try the workshop. Did Karson know anything about us at that point, or did you approach him cold?
Well, he knew about it because I had sent him that podcast, because I wasn't asking a lot from him at the time. So I was like, okay, like, we have a good friendship. I don't ask basically for anything from him. Can you please do me this favor and, like, at least just listen to this? And so he heard of Marriage Helper from the podcast. And so when I first asked him, he's like, I don't know. But then when he did cut his affair off, he knew that it was going to take something to make it work. And so he's like, hey, what about that workshop? If I can get off, I'd like to do it with you. And I'm like, yeah, let me call someone right now. No backsies.
You know, no backsies. I love that. Now, back then we only had the in-person version. You know, today we also do it online. And so you went to the in-person version down in Middle Tennessee. And who was the person leading that workshop?
It was it him or Jim?
They both did. Like, I heard your story.
Jim led it.
But Jim led it. You're right. But I think you might have opened it, or you were definitely there. So I remember talking to you, but I think Jim's was led most of it.
Yeah, it would make sense in that you wound up coaching with Jim afterwards. That would make sense that Jim was the one who led your workshop. And Jim's one of our coaches. We have quite a few. And so what did the workshop do for you? Let me back up. How did you feel after the end of the first day of the workshop?
Do you remember?
I bet you remember.
No, I don't. I was so scared.
Oh my gosh, it was just intense. It was the whole, you know, weekend. It was emotions. It was, you know, because even we went back 2 times after that, and it's like, oh, I didn't remember that. You know, because you can't catch it all. There was so much information, and you're trying to, and there's, but I think you said something to me, and I was talking to Ashley about it before, you know, the call, and it was. I told you a little bit about my story, just being a pastor and some of these things, and you're just really encouraging. And you actually said if I could call you, I could call you anytime I needed to. So I never did call you, but I appreciated the offer. But I felt hope, and that's really because I didn't have that for a long time, you know, years. I didn't have hope, and I just thought eventually this thing was going to end, and it was just a matter of time. And I just hoped that, you know, it wouldn't be a train wreck like it, you know, almost ended up being.
Okay. And thank you for that. I'm assuming that meant that we're talking about how you felt after the workshop altogether. But do you remember how you felt at the end of the first day of the workshop? If you don't, that's fine. But if you do.
No, I can't remember which things were on which day exactly. So sorry.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because it's not unusual at the end of the first day, people will be going, oh, my goodness, there's so much coming at us and we don't know how to feel about this. You know,
well, yeah, very much, you know, drinking from a fire hydrant.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is. And then after the third day. So when you left the workshop, how are things for you at that point?
They were still yo-yos. You know, I mean, it's still up and down. We still had a lot of back and forth, not with stay or go, but just getting along, you know, trying to get some of the pieces together because of my depression, I think.
It was just managing tension, basically. But it was still good because I know I left the workshop filled just with extreme hope and knowing that, you know, if we can both just stay the course, you know, of our marriage, that we'll get there. Like, I knew we would get there. And that's what I remember about the third day.
Okay. So the course, of course, costs some money, and then it takes a lot of time because you came to the in-person workshop. So probably you had to come a day early, and
Oh yeah.
it's not unusual that a couple winds up with 5 days when they come to the in-person workshop, a day on either end of travel.
Mhm.
And so you've got that inconvenience, losing, work, and all that kind of stuff. And then, there's an investment, a fee to come to the workshop itself. Was it worth it? Was it worth all that investment of time and money?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it's considering what it would, it's chump change. Considering what a divorce costs, or what splitting your pension costs, or what any of those costs, child support costs. I mean, if you're just talking financially, I mean, it's an investment. We're way better off. So it's without a doubt. I mean, that was. And that's what we tried to tell other people was, we sent a couple, there, and it was okay. Well, let's just find the people to pay for it. It's just not, maybe they didn't understand, because if you're not there, you didn't go, you don't know how much the value of it. And we're sitting there going, this is a no brainer. I don't care if it costs $10,000. It wouldn't matter. It was like, it's worth it.
No,
it
no.
doesn't cost $10,000.
If you want to send us $10,000, we'll take it.
Right.
Okay. So it's well worth the money. It's well worth the time, and you've committed to other people of that. Okay. Now, as you said, when you first leave, it's not like instantaneous, everything's perfect. There's still a lot of work to do. And so how long before you came to the second workshop?
It was another year, right? Just the following.
Yeah. 10 months ish.
And how many workshops have you been in altogether?
3.
3. Okay. So how much time between the second and third one?
Another year.
Yeah.
Another year. So about once a year, you guys would come back to the work.
We would have been there last year if it wasn't for COVID. So,
Great. We'd love to have you come once a year. And you're right. We hear from everybody. Like, we even had a couple, believe it or not, Karson, that actually came to the workshop 2 weeks apart.
Oh
wow.
Literally, they came to the workshop and then came to the workshop again 2 weeks later. Literally 2 weeks, and said, "We can't believe how much you changed and added in 2 weeks."
Yeah.
Of course, we hadn't changed or added anything. It's just that already they were able to hear it differently.
For sure.
And so, is that the case when you come back to the workshop? You heard more stuff because it was now in a different frame.
Especially the second time.
Yeah, and there's different speakers, different presenters,
True.
each time too. So you're getting different concepts, and like it was a fair heavy for us that first time we went, and then I think the second time it was a different tone, or maybe the third time.
Yeah. The second one was more where just the way they interacted on a daily basis, just really similar where we were at some point. It was just really destroying them, and so it really helped us. To hear that.
And then the third time, Jim, our coach, did
we renewed
our vow
vows.
renewal.
So you renewed your vows at the third time
with him.
And so, who were some of the other facilitators you went through the workshop with then, other than Jim?
We did Jim, we did Dave Matthews, and then the third one was yourself.
Oh, so okay. So 3 of our different leaders. And it's not really different concepts. I mean, we teach the exact same concept. It's just that each speaker has his or her own style. And the stories that we illustrate with will change with the speakers, but it's still the same concept. Okay. So you've been through it. And if somebody is out there listening right now, a husband and wife, or maybe both of them together, and they're listening to your story and they're having troubles, what would you tell them about the workshop?
I would say go before you make any decisions.
Oh, definitely.
Just pause and go to the workshop.
Yeah, there's no reason to rush any kind of decision about your relationship. Might as well get, and this was how I felt, was get as much information as you can. I mean, you would hate to get at the end of the road and go, oh, if I'd have known that piece, or if I'd have known that, then we would have made it. It's like, just get everything you can, hold on as long as you can. It's worth every fight. It's worth everything, every ounce of energy, every hour of loss of sleep. Like, it's worth that.
Okay. Well, let me ask you some questions. It might be a little difficult, but use your judgment as best you can. So when the affair was exposed, on a scale of 1 to 10, where was your marriage at that point in terms of how each of you felt? Like Ashley, how would you rate it then? And Karson, how would you rate it? The affair's just been exposed. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would each of you rate your
2?
marriage at that point?
I was miserable, but I didn't know why.
Yeah.
It was a super
Okay.
disconnect. So,
Yeah, I had checked out. So yeah, definitely it was 2, 1. You know, it was just like it wasn't like I guess it depends. Everyone's 1 is probably different, you know, but
right.
based on what, you know, like no one was getting hurt, you know, physically or anything like that. So it's not like that, but it was awful. And I didn't want to be there. You know, I didn't feel liked. You know, and that was a lot of it's like, why are we doing this? Do we like each other? Like, what? I don't even think you like me. Like, why are we married? We're just married, and you know, we're not friends. And
No, we were roommates.
we were roommates that had good sex. You know,
Even at that point, you were still having good sex?
Often,
Even
I don't
though it was a
know
1
if
or
I
a
would
2?
categorize it as like good or great back then, but it was.
yeah, not every time.
It was
but,
definitely still.
frequent, and you know, yeah.
And
So from just the physical standpoint, you were still very active, but
Correct.
not necessarily connecting emotionally. Okay. All right. So Ashley, how would you rate your marriage then when you finally completed the 10-week program? Actually, it's 12 weeks now. Well, it's 12 sessions. People can do it whatever speed they wish. So after you finished the Save My Marriage course, how would you rate it then at that point? Okay, so that's pretty dramatic improvement. Now, even though you didn't know what she was doing, Karson, about that time, how would you have rated things?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely much better. So, yeah, five would be good. It was like it was manageable, and had it not been for the trauma, that would have been definitely bearable, and probably more than bearable at that point if it hadn't been for the limerence still being there and the trauma of losing my church and losing my friends and all those things. So it was hard to separate her and my actions towards that with my loss.
Right. And for those of you who are listening or watching and you just heard a word you don't know, limerence, Limerence. If you go to our website, marriagehelper.com, that's marriagehelper.com, you can find various information there, articles and etc. about limerence, or go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/marriagehelper. And by the way, if you go there, please subscribe. It's free. And it helps us reach even more people and touch more lives. Okay, so then you go to the workshop. Okay, so after the first workshop, on a scale of 1 to 10, after the first workshop.
After the first workshop, I would say we were still right there, the 5 or 6 for me. It didn't change the relationship as much as gave us tools to later change it, I guess, or to begin working on it. Right. So afterwards, I wouldn't say there was a lot of difference, but I had a direction.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's not some magic talisman that you show up for 3 days and walk out and the light shines and the rainbow touches you and all that kind of stuff. There's still some work to do. Okay, so you start applying the things. And so before you came to the second workshop, I'm assuming you had been applying things you learned the first time through. And so just before you came to the second one, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put it?
I think it depended on the week.
It did.
I'm sorry.
It wasn't a bad relationship, but the emotional connection just still wavered, you know? And so right before we came to the second workshop, I would say it was, you know, between a 6 and a 7. And it was like, hey, we know we're doing so much better. Let's go and learn the rest of the stuff. Cause we, you know, smart enough to know that we didn't learn it all. And then let's see what we can do better going forward.
Yeah. Refine some of the tools.
Yes.
No, for me, the thing that kept going through my head was, I know I'm married to a beautiful person, a kind person, someone that loves me more than anyone has ever loved me, right? I mean, she's put up with all of this. And so there's all these like head things that I knew. But I think my depression was just, it was so deep that even though I knew in my head that this was a great relationship, I was still struggling.
Yeah, but if I heard you correctly, you were getting some kind of medication or something to help with the depression.
He waited
I
over a
waited
year.
over a year to start it. I hated medication. I didn't take Tylenol for headaches. So
But finally you did.
I finally got on an SSRI.
Okay, yeah. And so after the second workshop, rate your marriage between the second and third workshop.
Oh Lord. It was like didn't know that you could have a marriage like that.
Right.
You know, like you always want to be married to your best friend, or, you know, someone that you enjoy life with. And it was awesome. It is awesome, you know. And
Okay.
so it's,
Well, I'm so very happy. So very happy. So let me ask you the question then, for those that are listening or watching. They might be thinking, well, crapola, we got to go to 2 workshops for it to work.
No.
So what would you be saying to them? If they can only come to one, are they going to be thinking, based on your story, should they be thinking, well, and if we can only do one, it's not going to be that big a deal? Or is one that big a deal?
oh, one's absolutely a big deal. I mean, that was where you're introduced to all the tools, you know, and those are the things that we need and we still use today. The dreaming, you know, at the end, the dreaming together. I mean, that was what was so crucial for us.
Mhm.
You know, just to be able to talk and sit out on the porch. Or, I mean, that summer
We sat on the porch.
we sat on the porch for hours,
Every day.
just talking, you know, for hours.
And that was after the first workshop?
Well, that was at the end of it, but that dreaming tool was that we got from that first session we knew we had a goal, you know, and so it was getting to those things. And I believe if I just got on an SSRI a lot sooner, you know,
Gotcha.
that the effect would have been very different. But we were able to build our relationship, and then it was like once the fog lifted, it just snapped, you know. And it's like, well, why don't you just lift the fog a lot sooner? And that was my stubbornness. And yeah, I'm stubborn.
Well, I'm glad you got some good help for that. I'm a proponent for getting the right kind of medications to help you. I'm all for that. Okay, so we've mentioned 3 different things now. Let's see if we can clarify for the people who are paying attention to this. The first is we do have the online Save My Marriage course, which is now 12 sessions, but you still have access to the 10 sessions that Ashley went through. We call that our legacy course, and you actually get access to both. And then once a week, there's this coaching call where you can go type in your questions, and our coaches, different ones of our coaches will do that session once a week, and they'll answer as many of those questions as they can in about an hour or so. Plus, you get a special Facebook group, and that, I'm assuming, actually, based on what you said, was very beneficial to you as well. And that's the SMM. So you do recommend to people, it's very inexpensive in the scheme of things, that the SMM is worth the time and the money to do. You're saying that, is that right?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Feel like no matter what, it was life-changing for me.
Okay.
Well, that was the part I think was with the pies that was so cool, where it was like, no matter what, we're just better people, you know. And now we're just both married to better people. Even though it's the same person, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And then, of course, we have the workshop. And what I'm hearing you say, I want to clarify this just one more time, is that if you had gone on the medications for the depression earlier, that you think you would have had better success from the first workshop. But whatever, you guys are both saying the first workshop is absolutely worthwhile, even if a couple can't come back to others later.
100%.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
Okay. And then if you can come back, you can come back to the workshop as many times as you wish at a reduced rate. And I'll guarantee you. By the way, we changed some things since the last in-person workshop you came to. We actually added in a section on Sunday that if and when you guys come back again, you're going to hear some really cool stuff that we put on a Sunday afternoon that we just put in. That's the third day of the workshop, Sunday afternoon, that we just put in the last calendar year after COVID.
Oh,
I think that you're going to love that. It's really awesome. Okay. So we look at all that stuff. And Then you went into coaching and you decided to coach with Jim. Okay. Um, when people enroll in the workshop, they have an option to get a discount on coaching if they go ahead and enroll in that at the same time. Altogether, Karson, about how many sessions do you think you had with Jim?
A lot.
A lot of sessions. I think it was, I don't know how it was, how frequent it was. It's weird with that kind of trauma and some of that stuff, the things I don't remember, in years and whatever. So I'm bad with details and some of those things in the timelines, but
I don't want to say how many.
Okay.
How many?
I think total. Now, we didn't do every single one of them together.
Some we did together. Some was just me. Some was just her. Some was her then me, even in the same session.
Okay.
24,
something like that.
So that's like 8 packages because each package comes with 3 sessions. Now, for those out there listening thinking, oh my goodness, we can't afford 8 packages.
You just have to listen to the coach.
If I
you don't
just
need
listen,
as many.
you don't need as many.
Many people will buy a 3-session package after the workshop, and that's enough for them. But everybody's unique. Everybody's unique. And because you were dealing with so many things, particularly the kind of loss you were talking about, not just the loss of my first marriage, but also the loss of the church that I helped found, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. You were dealing with some pretty heavy stuff there. And so I'm glad that Jim was of help. And I'm glad you had that many sessions with Jim, but just let people know that it doesn't typically require 24 sessions. It can be often done less than that, but they're there for you if need be. So,
but yeah, that was mostly me. Like, wait, am I sure I'm doing this right? Let me talk about it for a minute.
And that's fine. Well, it looks like you guys really are doing well right now.
Yep, absolutely. It's great.
Okay, so life is wonderful. Good for you. I'm so happy for you. All right, so to the listening audience out there, 2 people who are real people, not some actors we've hired, that kind of stuff. 2 real people out there who have been, what would you tell them about Marriage Helper in general? And what would you tell them about the various services of Marriage Helper as we wind up? And I realize some of this will be redundant to what you've said before, but what would you like to say to people before we go?
From the lives of my children, my career, passion, my marriage, it's all owed to Marriage Helper. Just that it's what gave Ashley strength to put up with all of my nonsense and through my depression, to not give up on me, even when I was just hoping she would. It was everything, and I felt like I deserved to be given up on, and it was Marriage Helper that gave her, not gave it to her, because she's a powerhouse by herself, right. but equipped her, with what she needed, and it's just anybody that's having any kind of issues, I did. That's where I point them. I just point them at you guys, and I say, that's the place to go. Those are the folks that they don't. I'm trying to think the best way to put it, because it's not past focused, and that was what was so cool.
It's forward focused.
It wasn't focused on what we had done, why we were where we were so much, like the horsemen and some of that piece, but it was very much, you're all here, the group of people, all you're in miserable relationships. Like, we're moving forward from this, right? We're going somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so it was nice to know that first you weren't alone, that there was community, and that people have done it before. So do it.
Cool. And Ashley?
Yeah, I think that all the services or packages, are amazing. And I was definitely lucky to be able to do them all, between, time and finances. But any one or combination of one is still can give you the tools that you need to reconcile your marriage. I believe that without a doubt.
Good. Excellent. And so typically we say to people like this, if your spouse is not at the point to be interested in trying to help the marriage work out, then we would recognize where Ashley went, which is our Save My Marriage course. You do it online at your own pace. There are 12 modules. Plus, you get access to the 10 modules of the old course as well. And we recommend often people start there if your spouse is not ready to do something. But if he or she is really ready, then we would recommend come to the workshop, because that's where we do the most intense work in those 3 days of that workshop. And you can now do that online. We have discovered that online is just as effective as the in-person workshop. And so we'd love to have you guys come there. And then there's coaching. Now, you could actually start with coaching if you wanted, but we recommend coaching either after the Save My Marriage course or after the workshop. And we have men coaches and women coaches. Again, they're not counselors or therapists. These are people that we've trained to do coaching. And I love what you said, Karson. I actually teach counselors and therapists. I actually do that. And in the process, a lot of what they're taught to do is to go back through the past. There's value for that with certain difficulties. If a person's dealing with a personal issue that he or she can't get past, then digging back into the past can be very helpful. But our coaches don't do that. Our workshop doesn't do that. Our courses don't do that, because what we want you to do is to start now and go forward. So if you need therapy for the past, there are people out there who are really good at that. But if you're ready to do something, then everything we do is aimed in that direction. Now, do you think I described that accurately, or is there?
Oh, absolutely. No, that's exactly it. And that was so different from the counseling. And, you never said, like I said, trapped, it was, here's where you go. Here's how you get out. Here's what you do,
I'm so sorry. I just break.
I'll never forget it,
I probably won't either now. But I'm so sorry to hear that. It just breaks my heart. Thank you guys for sharing this for other people to be exposed to. Thank you very much. Thank you for your transparency, your openness, your honesty. That's just absolutely wonderful. So thank you for doing that. And may wonderful things continue to happen with you. And we want to continue our relationship with you. We want to continue a relationship with you guys. We think very highly of you.
No, thank you. We look forward to being back as soon as we
Good.
As soon as you let us, as soon as are you having in person right now, or I don't know how that works?
We're about to do, COVID caused us the ability to do the in-person workshops, but now that things are easing up some, we do have scheduled our first
in July. You just didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, the first in-person workshop is already scheduled and booked. It's full. I mean, it filled.
Wow.
Like that.
That's
awesome. What's happening now with all of our workshops, Karson and Ashley, is that they're filling up almost immediately. People are calling saying, can we come sometime in the next couple of 3 weeks or 4 weeks? And we're saying every workshop is full to about 6 weeks out.
Wow.
And we're doing 36 workshops this year. And they're filling up that fast. So if you guys are interested, go to marriagehelper.com. And you can find all about things there. You can even schedule through our website, you can schedule a visit with one of our client relations folks. And they're not counselors, they're not coaches. They're people who will listen to your story and then help guide you to the best product or service that we have. And if we don't have one for you, they'll tell you that. I mean, if you call out something that we can't help you with, they'll tell you. Because we're all about helping you become the best you can be and having the best marriage you can. So thank you again, you guys. I really appreciate you being on the program, and I hope I get to see you when you come back down again. I really do.
Sounds good.
Okay. And to all you listening to Relationship Radio, keep tuning in. More interviews out there, more question and answer sessions where we take questions from people. We really do care. This is Dr. Joe Beam saying, have a great life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Relationship Radio. Please refer to the notes in the description to learn more about any resources mentioned in this episode. Please visit our website at marriagehelper.com for more information about our online courses, marriage workshops, and coaching. If you have a question you want to ask Dr. Beam and Kimberly Holmes, follow the link to see which topic is currently up for discussion. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We exist to help save marriages and strengthen families. We look forward to interacting with you on the next episode of Relationship Radio.